Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another lovely vid. And in this one, I am going to be talking about the worst albums that I own. Obviously, this is going to be a completely subjective list because we're delving into the wonderful land of musical taste, which of course is a completely subjective thing for the most part. Now, I will be talking about a few albums that I think that are objectively terrible, but they'll kind of be the last two albums that I cover. So, anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this. We're going to be dividing it up to a few different categories. The first category that I'm going to talk about basically are albums that I really like but are looked down upon by, serious music fans because they're trite or bad or whatever. I don't consider them bad. In fact, I really like these albums. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive right into it. We are going to start off with Drowning Pool's Sinner. Obviously, this was their debut, and I really enjoy it. I think it's absolutely fantastic front to back. I love it. Now, I've not had that album that too long. I've heard it, obviously, for a long. I heard it when it came out, but I only recently picked it up at a flea market for a fairly low price, and I listened to it a whole lot after I got it, actually, because I really, really, really like it. And I think it's fantastic, even though it's looked down upon. Next one that falls in that category is Discharge The Sickness. Again, I think I got it at that same flea market. Again, cheap. And again, I really enjoy this, even though it's crappy new metal. I really like it. Same reason. But the big difference is with Drowning Pool. I feel after this album and the original vocalist died, I cannot get into any of their work past this album. I just don't like it. It just doesn't speak to me. It's just kind of like they fell off a cliff. Maybe the magic went away when he died. As far as Disturbed goes, I feel they're a little more consistent. I like a fair amount more of their work than I do Drowning Pool, but this is still my favorite Disturbed album. And Disturbed is more like the Nickelback of metal, right? A bit boring and a bit consistent, but I do kind of like them. Anyway, after that, we've got Gravity Kills, which their self-titled debut. Basically, back in the 90s, there were a number of bands that were kind of riding on the coattails of Nine Inch Nails' big success back then, and Gravity Kills was definitely one of them. But you know what? I really enjoy this album. It's great industrial metal, in my opinion. I really like this band, and I didn't feel like they really got a fair shake. I thought they were absolutely fantastic, but again, not loved by a lot of people, I guess. Next one, kind of in the same vein, and I don't like it as much as the one I just showed off, Stabbing Westwards, Wither, Blister, Burn, and Peel. I got this back in the day just like I did Gravity Kills, and same thing. They were looked down upon because they're, coattails or Nine Inch Nails or whatever, and not as good as Gravity Kills, but still fairly enjoyable. I like a good amount of stuff on this. After that, we've got we're going to be talking about this band kind of defies categorization a little bit. They came to prominence after that whole Nine Inch Nails thing, but they have a fair amount of industrial elements, but they're mostly considered new metal, and that is Static X's Wisconsin Death Trip. I enjoy this album a fair amount, and I know they're looked down upon by serious music fans, but I find them fairly enjoyable. So there you go. This next two that I'm going to show off, this was part of, they really came to prominence in the late 90s, early 2000s, and as part of the new metal wave. And of course, I'm talking about Godsmack. I'm talking about their debut and Awake. I really like those two albums of theirs. I think they're pretty good. But they were looked down upon because they were seen as like imitators of Alice in Chains and all that. And honestly, I could definitely hear a lot of Alice in Chains and grunge influence in their music, but they do have some unique flavor to it that I think they do really well on those first two albums. Now, personally, after those first two albums, I don't care for them very much. I think they kind of hit a wall after that and went off a cliff. but that's just my personal opinion. Now, the next category of albums I'm going to talk about are albums that may be looked down upon a bit by the band's core fans, but I don't think are completely horrible, right? And this first one might be considered blasphemy by some because of what album it is. But out of all these albums I'm about to show off in this group, this is definitely my favorite one. I think this album absolutely fucking rules. Now, it is, to be fair, from a very legendary band, their first album without their most legendary vocalist. You may or may not have guessed it just based on that description. And the album that followed this one up, I think, was dog shit. So that could actually make it one of two bands, right? Which one is it? It's Judas Priest's Jugulator. This was their first album with Tim Owens without Rob Halford. And I love this album. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I got it back, when it came out when I was in college. I absolutely adored this album. It's really, really, really good. It's actually one of my favorite Priest albums overall, amazingly. It is different because there's no Halford on it, but it's still really, really, really good. Demolition, though, that's terrible. But Jugulator is really good. So I wouldn't consider it one of the worst, but again, fans of the band might. The next one I'm gonna show off is Anthrax's Volume 8, The Threat Is Real. This is definitely the weakest album with John Bush on it. I don't hate it, though. I like it well enough. There's about 4 or 5 songs on here I really like. The rest of them are kind of alright-ish. But it's definitely not loved by a lot of the band's fan base. Same thing with State of Euphoria. That's the weakest Belladonna album. I didn't feel the need to show that one off because amongst Anthrax fans, I think there's probably more Belladonna fans than John Bush fans, for obvious reasons. So anyway, the next one I'm going to show off is another little bit of a double feature. We're going to be showing off Megadeth's The World Needs a Hero and Risk. Out of the two, though, I actually feel that The World Needs a Hero is more, what's the word I'm looking for, mediocre. Because it's just, honestly, it commits the sin of being kind of boring. It's just basically, it's a paint-by-numbers Megadeth album, and not a very good one at that. Whereas Risk, even though it's mediocre, it's at least different. It's a little more interesting, for lack of a better term. They fail in a somewhat different way than what you would expect, and I don't know. I don't hate it, but I certainly don't love it either. So anyway, moving on. We're going to be talking about the final one in this series, Metallica's Load. I don't hate it. In fact, I really enjoy about half the songs on it. I think are really good. I think Bleeding Me is absolutely fantastic. For example, that to me is one of their masterpieces. No, it is not traditional Metallica. Not even a little bit, but I really enjoy that song and several others on there. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about albums that I don't particularly love that the band's fan base might be okay with, right? And the first one I'm going to talk about is Fear Factory, Soul of a New Machine. I got this basically right after Demanufacture came out. I got Demanufacture first, heard it, fell in love with it. I thought Demanufacture was just absolutely fan-fucking-tastic, right? Just, oh my god, it blew me away with how good it was. And then I got this, and I was disappointed, to put it mildly. Because it doesn't sound like, with Demanufacture, Fear Factory went in a completely different direction. This is a pretty straight-ahead, standard death metal record, right? Whereas Demanufacture, lots of clean singing started to happen on there. They really amped up the industrial elements and really changed their sound quite a bit. And frankly, I prefer that over their generic death metal sound. I don't know how the fans feel about that one. I just can't get into it. And I've tried from time to time I'll listen to it. I'm still always like, yeah, meh. And this is coming from somebody who likes death metal. I was just, praising, now I know it's not hardcore death metal. I was just recently did reviews of At the Gates, Drink from the Night Itself, and Amorphous' Queen of Time. I just don't think Fear Factory did it all that well. So anyway, moving on. This one is probably going to be blasphemy for some people, and I realize that. I'm going to be talking about Sepultura Schizophrenia. I can't get into this. Maybe it's just the poor production value on this album, because it just does not sound good, and I just can't get into it. It's too primitive. I just don't like it. And this is coming from somebody who absolutely loves Beneath the Remains and Arise. I think those are like perfect albums, just about. Those are absolutely phenomenal, but this, I just don't like it. I just can't get into it, right? Period. Now, I know this next set that I'm going to show off, because this is going to be another 2-for-1, is probably going to be disliked by a number of this band's fans, because they can be kind of rabid. So feel free to jump in and tell me how wrong I am if you really feel the urge. I am going to be talking about Pantera's The Great Southern Trendkill and Reinventing the Steel. I don't care for these that much. They're, to me, kind of just blah albums, right? No matter how much I listen to them and try to get into them, they're just kind of meh. They just kind of wash over me. And this is coming from somebody who really enjoys Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar Display of Power, and Far Beyond Driven. I love those albums, but those two, I can take them or leave them. I just can't get into them no matter how hard I try. So that's just me. So that leaves us with the two, what I would call objectively bad albums. These albums just suck. There's just no other way to put it. And the first album I'm going to show off was one of the first 2 albums ever that I owned. I got this album back when I was like, 10 or 11 years old. I got it along with Skid Row's self-titled debut. By the way, I think Skid Row is held up way better than this act, right? It's just, they just have. This act, here we are nearly 30 years later. I don't think this is held up, because I was actually listening to this just the other night, and I was thinking, wow, this is kind of a pile of dog crap. And that is, Poison's Open Up and Say, aw. Just not good. It's Poison is dog shit. I'm sorry. They are dog shit. I'm sorry if you're a fan of that band. They are just not good. Again, opinion. This is just my opinion. And then finally, we're gonna wrap this thing up with the absolute, in my opinion, by far worst album in my collection. It doesn't even have the nostalgia factor going for it that Poison did, right? Because I got that Poison album back in the day on cassette. One of the first 2 things I ever owned on my own, and it just I listened to it a million times, and at least I have that nostalgia. For this one, I don't have that, and I have no idea why I even bought this album in the first place. And that is w.a.s.p's El Dorado. This is completely irredeemable. It is horrible. It sucks. It's crap. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a terrible album. It's just not good at all. It's bad. It's just everything about it is bad. Just a bad, crappy album. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this list. As always, I'd really be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of this list, if you agreed with it, disagreed with it, whatever. What albums would make it to your worst list, right? And before I, say goodbye on this video, I want to give a shout out to the fellow who actually inspired this video, and he recently gave me a shout out in one of his videos. And this guy is a part of what is called the VC or vinyl community. Now, I don't directly consider myself part of the VC. I see myself more as an honorary member, and that's because I'm largely a CD/digital guy. I do collect vinyl too, but for me, CD and digital is largely where it's at. In the VC, obviously vinyl, but regardless, this guy, he shows off a ton of in the VC, they like to show off music acquisitions that they have. So he'll show off, he's like, hey, I got these CDs or these records or whatever, and he'll show those off. But he doesn't just do that. He does a wide variety of things. He talks a lot about a wide variety of musical topics, specifically hard rock and metal, which is probably why I like his channel so damn much. He talks about, stuff I like. He has a relatively similar musical taste than I do. He does like Machine Head's Catharsis, so maybe he's a little iffy. I'll forgive him on that one. But I do really enjoy his content, and if you like my stuff, you'd probably like him too. And his name is on YouTube is MetalMickey. I think his real name is Mike. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I will link to his channel in the description below, and I really think you should check his channel out. So anyway, that pretty much wraps this up. If you like me, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.